We're going to be covering how to add CSS styling into your HTML page, also how you can select elements and apply some simple properties, values to those elements in order to have them rendered out within the web page. CSS is not a programming language like JavaScript, and it's not a markup language either like HTML. So CSS is a style sheet language. And the purpose of CSS is to take a plain HTML structured page, select the page elements, and apply styling to the elements. I've got a basic HTML page, and we're going to be adding some styling into the page elements. So there are several different ways that you can add styling into the page. So you can add it directly within the style tags. Select the element with a tag of header. I would specify the element first. So this is the selection of the element that we want to apply the styling to. And then apply the styling properties that we want to set. Set the color of the text within the header element. We would specify color to red. So then we specify a value, which is going to be a value of red. So what that did is that transformed the text within the header, made it red. Styling can also be applied directly within the element, within the style attribute. So specifying the style attribute, and here we're going to set a background color. So styling properties are going to be the same, and then we just assign a value to it. So I'm going to assign a value of black to the styling properties. So we're setting for this element the style property of background color black. And what that does is that transforms the background color to black. One of the main disadvantages of placing it within your HTML is that it's hard to find, hard to update, and you need to go through the elements. And what happens is when you set it as a style attribute, then this is actually going to be overriding the other styling properties, because this is going to be coming to the closest part of the element as it's directly within the attribute. So if we were to update this to black, what happens is it's actually going to be overriding the style header. So whatever we change this to, it doesn't matter, because we're adding another style property to it in order to be adding it directly within the page elements. You should avoid adding it as a style attribute directly within the page element, and make a selection with it either using within the style tags or within the style sheet, which is the best practices, as when you are adding it with the style sheet, there's a lot of advantages of making it really easy to update, share the same styling across multiple HTML pages. And what a style sheet, a separate file that's going to contain the styling for the HTML page, and this is a file that gets linked to from within the HTML text. So we set up a link tag, and then using the href, linking it over to where the style sheet is located, and then using the rel attribute in order to, this is going to be a style sheet. So let's go ahead and we're going to create a brand new file. I'm going to keep it within the same directory, and that's where we're going to be applying the style sheets and the style properties to the page elements of the HTML file. I've saved it as style CSS, and then let's link to this CSS the same header, and then we're going to apply a color to that header. So let's update that and set the color to the text to be red. So now that we've selected the element, applied using the style sheet, updating the page element with a tag of header, and that's changing it to be red, because we're going to be working off of the style sheet. And this is going to be the separate file that's going to contain all the CSS. If we were to create a second HTML file, we can link it to the same style sheet. So if we create a second one that's called index2, and we go over to the second page, so make an update to it. So that one will say 2, and the original one will still say 1. And now if we want to select and update the header on both pages, all we have to do is make an update to the style sheet that they're both going to be linked to. And now that's going to be applying the blue color to both of the headers across both of the pages, because they're both linking to the same style sheet. And that's the benefit of using a separate style sheet in order to make updates to the styling, that you can really easily link to it and make updates to it, which is going to go across all of the files, that all of the HTML files that are linking to that particular CSS file. The CSS starts by setting up a selector. So this is going to be the element, and the element that you want to apply that particular rule set to. And this can also apply to multiple elements, so they're the same. So if we're selecting all of the elements that are list items, this will apply it to all of the list items. When we select the list item, we see that the bullet points now are all blue on all of the list items. You can also apply it to all of the anchor tags, and now that's updating the text on both of the files to be blue for the anchor tags. And that's the selector. The selection process is what's known as the selector. And then once you made the selection, the next is you select the property that you want to use. In this case, we're using the property of color, and we're setting the property value to be blue. So changing the property value will apply different value to that color property. And both of these together are going to be what's known as the declaration. So we're declaring the color property to be set as red within the anchor tags selected from the web page HTML file. You can add multiple property values into the rule set. So within the selection, within the curly brackets, just adding in a second line, going to set the background color, and I'll update the background color of these to be black. It's going to get applied to all of the matching elements that are matching that selection, where we're using the semicolons in order to make a separation of those different statements. So even if we were not to have separate lines, this will still work as long as we've got the semicolon that's separating out those property values. To separate it out so it is more readable within the CSS file, where we're setting it to a new line. The CSS property name and value separated by the colon. So go ahead and create an HTML file. You can add in a number of HTML elements, apply styling, create a new CSS file, select some elements on the page, and apply some styling to those elements, and you get ready to move on to the next lesson.